All right, so welcome to your personalized deep dive. And, we're going to be exploring the world of English learning goals today. Uh, those desires we have to really kind of boost our skills, level up in the language.
And it's interesting, because these goals aren't just about, reaching fluency, but they reveal a lot about how people approach learning and what they hope to achieve with the language, right?
Exactly. And so we're using this awesome YouTube video as our guide today, and it's called English Phrases. I Want to Improve My English, from the High Level Listening Advanced English podcast. So you shared this video with me, and we're going to unpack all those phrases that people use, right, to describe their English ambitions and see what we can learn.
Yeah, and understanding those phrases can actually help you tailor your own learning, right? It's like having a roadmap to navigate this whole language learning landscape.
Okay, let's dive in. One phrase that popped up right away in the video is feeling rusty. I think we've all been there, right? Like life gets busy, you haven't practiced in a while, and suddenly your English feels a bit creaky.
Yeah, it's like a muscle you haven't used in a while.
Right.
It doesn't mean you've lost the strength, just that it needs a bit of a warm-up.
Yeah.
And, research actually shows that language attrition, that rustiness, it's a natural process. Our brains are constantly optimizing, so if we don't use certain skills, they can become less accessible.
So it's not just me being lazy then.
Yeah.
It's science.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually kind of reassuring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the video suggests brushing up as the solution. But, let's go beyond just revisiting those old textbooks.
Yeah.
What are some more effective ways to shake off that rust and re-engage with the language?
Oh, that's a good question. I think maybe exposing yourself to authentic content, like watching a TV show or listening to music in English. What about that?
That's a great start, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about active recall, right? Instead of passively reading, try summarizing what you've learned or teaching it to someone else. That forces your brain to retrieve the information, making it stick better.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So from rusty to refreshed, that's the first step on our language journey, right?
Now let's talk about another common goal. Expanding your vocabulary. The video compares it to a balloon inflating, a pretty good visual, I think.
Yeah, I like that. It's about making your language more expansive, more expressive. But I feel like everyone always says, read more to improve vocabulary. Is that really the best way?
Well, reading is definitely valuable, especially if you actively engage with new words, look them up, use them in sentences, even create flashcards, right?
Right.
But don't underestimate the power of spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition.
Yeah. It's a learning technique that involves reviewing material at increasing intervals. So instead of cramming, you revisit words strategically to help them move into your long-term memory.
Yeah.
There are tons of apps that use this method, and studies have shown it's incredibly effective, yeah.
Okay, so spaced repetition is like a workout routine for your vocabulary. I like that. I can get on board with that.
Exactly. And think about focusing on word families. If you learn the verb expand, explore related words like expansion, expansive, expandable. This builds connections in your mind and makes learning new words easier.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful. I'm already feeling my vocabulary balloon inflating. What's next?
Well, a lot of learners want to sound more natural, right? Which often ties into improving pronunciation. The video emphasizes saying words like travel correctly, but let's go deeper. What does it really mean to sound natural in English?
To me, it's about capturing that effortless flow, those subtle rhythms and intonations that native speakers have.
Yeah.
Like it just sounds so smooth.
Absolutely. It's not just about pronouncing individual words correctly, but about connecting them smoothly, using appropriate stress and intonation. Think of it like music. It's not just about hitting the right notes, it's about the phrasing, the dynamics, the overall musicality.
So it's like we're moving from basic pronunciation to mastering the music of the language.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And a great way to practice this is through shadowing, right?
Sure.
Listen to a native speaker and try to imitate their pronunciation, their rhythm, their intonation, even their emotions. It's like becoming a vocal chameleon, blending into the soundscape of the language.
Shadowing. I'm going to have to try that. I can already start to hear the difference in my head.
And one thing that can really hinder sounding natural is the fear of making mistakes.
Right. Oh, tell me about it. Sometimes I get so nervous about messing up that I completely clam up.
It's understandable, yeah. But remember, mistakes are inevitable, and they're actually valuable learning opportunities. The key is to shift your perspective. See them not as failures, but as feedback. They show you where you need to focus your practice.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. Mistakes are like guideposts on the road to fluency.
Exactly. And speaking of fluency, let's tackle another big goal that came up in the video: building confidence.
Ah, confidence. That elusive quality that makes all the difference when speaking a new language. It's like stepping onto a stage, right? You either shine or you shrink under the spotlight.
It can definitely feel that way, yeah. But remember, confidence is built, not born. And one of the most effective ways to build it is through practice, especially in real-life situations, like getting out there and just using the language.
But what if you don't have any opportunities to practice with native speakers?
That's where creativity comes in, right? Join online language exchange groups, find conversation partners online, even talk to yourself in English. The key is to get those vocal cords vibrating, to get comfortable expressing yourself in the language.
So even talking to myself in the mirror can help.
Absolutely. Think of it as a dress rehearsal for real-life conversations.
Oh, I like that. From stage fright to stage presence. All right, what else did we learn about confidence from the video?
Well, the video highlights the importance of focusing on your progress, no matter how small, right?
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in what you still can't do, but celebrating those little wins can make a huge difference in your confidence, yeah.
Oh, that's so true. It's like giving yourself a pat on the back for every step forward, no matter how tiny.
Exactly. And remember, confidence isn't just about speaking perfectly. It's about feeling comfortable expressing yourself, even if you make mistakes. It's about believing in your ability to communicate and connect, even if you don't have perfect grammar or a native-like accent.
That's a really important point. Confidence isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Okay, so we've tackled feeling rusty, expanding vocabulary, sounding more natural, and building confidence. What other ambitious goals are waiting for us on this language learning journey?
Well, how about one that many learners consider the holy grail? Thinking in English.
Ah, yes. The dream of bypassing that mental translation process, just flowing effortlessly in the language. But is that even possible?
It definitely is, but it takes dedicated practice and a shift in mindset. Think about it this way. When you were a child, learning your first language, you didn't translate everything in your head, right?
Right.
You just absorbed the language naturally, intuitively. We want to tap back into that innate ability.
Okay, I see. So how do we start training our brains to think directly in English?
The video suggests a simple exercise. Start by naming everyday objects around you in English. Don't translate, just think the word in English. You can also try describing your daily routine in your head in English, or even having imaginary conversations in English.
Oh, so it's all about immersing yourself in the language, even in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like creating an English-speaking world inside your own head.
Exactly. And as you do this more and more, you'll find that the mental translation process starts to fade away, and English becomes a more natural way of thinking and expressing yourself.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Okay, so from thinking to actually doing the video also talks about working on skills, which implies active effort and practice. But what are some of the most effective ways to actively improve our English skills?
That's a great question. And I think it's important to understand that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Yeah.
The best way to work on your skills really depends on your individual learning style, your goals, and even your personality.
So it's like finding the right workout routine for your language muscles.
Exactly. Some people thrive on structured learning environments, while others prefer a more immersive experiential approach. Some people are visual learners, while others learn best through listening or doing. The key is to experiment and find what works best for you.
So it's all about personalized learning, about tailoring your approach to your own unique needs and preferences.
Precisely. And once you've found your learning style, you can start exploring different techniques and resources that cater to your strengths, right?
Okay, so let's say I'm a visual learner. What are some strategies I could use to work on my English skills?
Well, visual learners often benefit from using flashcards, watching movies and TV shows with subtitles, and even creating mind maps to connect new vocabulary and grammar concepts. They might also enjoy learning through interactive online games and quizzes.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about auditory learners?
Auditory learners might prefer listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and music in English. They might also find it helpful to record themselves speaking English and then listen back to identify areas for improvement.
Okay, and what about kinesthetic learners? Those who learn best through doing.
Kinesthetic learners thrive on hands-on activities. They might enjoy role-playing different scenarios in English, acting out scenes from movies or plays, or even using physical objects to learn new vocabulary.
So there's a learning style and a strategy for everyone. That's fantastic. But even with the right approach, language learning can feel daunting sometimes. What are some ways to stay motivated and avoid getting discouraged along the way?
That's a crucial point. Motivation is key. And one of the best ways to stay motivated is to set realistic goals and celebrate your progress no matter how small.
Okay, so instead of aiming for fluency overnight, focus on smaller, achievable milestones.
Exactly. Set a goal to learn 10 new words a week, or to have a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker, or to watch an episode of your favorite English TV show without subtitles. Each of these small victories will fuel your motivation and keep you moving forward.
Yeah, that's great advice. And what about those times when you hit a plateau or feel like you're not making progress? How do you push past those moments of frustration?
First, remember that plateaus are normal. Everyone experiences them in their learning journey. It's like hitting a wall in your workout routine. You need to find new ways to challenge yourself and break through. Try mixing up your learning activities, exploring new resources, or even taking a short break to come back with fresh eyes and renewed energy.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like cross-training for your language skills.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Connect with other learners. Find a language tutor or join an online forum where you can share your experiences and get support from others who are on the same journey.
Oh, that's a great point. It's like having a support system for your language learning. All right, so we've talked about the importance of personalized learning, setting realistic goals, celebrating progress, and pushing past plateaus. What other insights can we glean from the video about effective ways to work on our English skills?
Well, the video touches on the idea of focusing on fluency, which is often a key goal for learners. But what does fluency really mean, and how can we work towards it in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I think most people associate fluency with speaking quickly and effortlessly without hesitation. But is that really the whole picture?
Fluency is definitely about more than just speed. It's about
Hmm.
being able to communicate your ideas effectively, to express yourself clearly and confidently, and to understand and respond to others in real time. It's about having a smooth and natural flow of language, both in speaking and in listening.
So it's about more than just mastering grammar and vocabulary. It's about developing that instinctual, intuitive grasp of the language.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to develop fluency is through practice, practice, practice. Find opportunities to speak English as much as possible, even if it's just with yourself or with other learners. Record yourself speaking and listen back to identify areas for improvement. And focus on building your listening comprehension skills, as this will also contribute to your overall fluency.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a holistic approach working on all aspects of the language to develop that smooth, natural flow.
Precisely. And remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. It's something you continuously work towards and refine over time.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From feeling rusty to thinking in English, from personalized learning to focusing on fluency, we've explored a wide range of goals and strategies for boosting our English skills. But there's one more phrase from the video that I think is worth unpacking. I'm getting there.
Ah, yes. That phrase captures the essence of the language learning journey so well, doesn't it? It acknowledges that progress takes time and effort, that there will be ups and downs along the way, but that we're constantly moving forward.
Yeah, it's a statement of both humility and determination. It recognizes that we're not perfect, that we still have work to do, but that we're committed to the journey and confident in our ability to reach our goals.
Exactly. And I think it's a powerful reminder that language learning is a lifelong pursuit, right?
Yeah.
There's always something new to learn, always room for growth and improvement. And that's what makes it so exciting and rewarding.
Absolutely. So let's keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep celebrating every step we take on this incredible language learning adventure.
And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, and celebrate every milestone along the way.
Great advice. Well, I think we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored some of the most common English learning goals and discussed effective strategies for achieving them, but we're just getting started.
In the next part, we'll delve even deeper into the nuances of these goals and explore some more advanced techniques for leveling up your English skills.
So stay tuned, language enthusiasts, for part 2 of our English learning adventure. So welcome back to our deep dive into English learning goals. I'm still buzzing from our last conversation. So many great insights already. Where do we pick up from? I'm getting there.
Well, that phrase really highlights the ongoing nature of language learning, right? It's not about reaching some finish line, but about continually expanding your abilities and pushing those boundaries.
Exactly. And the video we're exploring actually touches on a related concept, dedicating more time to practice. I know it sounds obvious, but sometimes we need that reminder, right? To make English a priority in our lives. I'm definitely guilty of that.
Like anything else we want to improve, right? Consistency is key. But it's not just about clocking in hours. It's about finding ways to integrate English into your daily routine in a way that feels natural and enjoyable.
Right, I love that. It shouldn't feel like a chore, right? So what are some fun and engaging ways to weave more English into our daily lives?
Well, the video mentions listening to podcasts, a suggestion I fully endorse, of course. But there are so many other creative options out there, like switch your phone's language settings to English, follow English-speaking accounts on social media, even try cooking from recipes written in English, things like that.
Oh, those are great ideas.
Yeah.
I've actually heard that even changing the language on your video games can be a fun way to pick up new vocabulary and immerse yourself in the language.
Absolutely. And the more you surround yourself with English, the more natural it will start to feel. It's like training your brain to think in the language without even realizing it.
Speaking of picking things up, the video also mentions picking up new phrases. It sounds so effortless, like you're just absorbing language from the air. But how does that actually happen?
It's all about exposure and paying attention to how language is used in those authentic contexts. When you hear a new phrase that catches your ear, write it down, look it up, try using it in your own conversations. Don't be afraid to experiment with it a little bit.
So it's like becoming a language detective, constantly on the lookout for new clues and insights. I like that.
And as you build your repertoire of phrases, you'll start to notice those patterns and connections. You'll see how idioms and expressions add color and nuance to the language, how they convey those cultural attitudes and perspectives.
It's like adding spices to a dish.
Yeah.
Those little touches that make it truly flavorful and unique.
Exactly. And that brings us to another goal that was mentioned in the video, feeling comfortable discussing in-depth topics. This takes things to a whole new level, right?
Definitely. It's one thing to chat about the weather or your weekend plans, but it's a whole different ballgame to engage in complex conversations about history, politics, or philosophy.
Right. It requires a deeper level of understanding, not just of vocabulary and grammar, but also of cultural context and those nuanced perspectives.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we move from basic conversations to those more challenging, intellectually stimulating discussions?
Well, it starts with building a solid foundation in the language, of course. But it also involves expanding your knowledge base, reading widely, and engaging with those diverse viewpoints.
Oh, I see. So it's about becoming a well-rounded individual, not just a fluent English speaker.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Seek out opportunities to discuss those topics that interest you, even if they feel a bit intimidating at first. The more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
And that confidence will really shine through in your conversations, making you a more engaging and persuasive communicator.
Absolutely. And remember, even native speakers don't always agree on these complex topics, right? The goal isn't to have all the answers, but to be able to articulate your ideas thoughtfully and respectfully, and to engage in meaningful dialogue with others.
Oh, that's a great point. It's about fostering understanding, not necessarily winning arguments. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this section. Dedicating more time to practice, picking up new phrases, and tackling those in-depth topics. What other gems can we unearth from the video?
Well, there's one more goal that I think deserves special attention, making English part of your weekly routine. This speaks to the importance of consistency and integration, right?
Absolutely. It's about creating those sustainable habits that support your language learning journey, not just relying on bursts of motivation or sporadic study sessions.
Right, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Start by incorporating small, achievable actions into your week. Like listen to an English podcast during your commute, watch a movie in English with subtitles, or even spend 15 minutes reading an English article before bed.
I've heard that even listening to music in English while you're doing other things like cooking or cleaning can help to passively absorb the sounds and rhythms of the language.
That's a great point. The key is to make it feel natural and enjoyable, not like a chore that you're forcing yourself to do. And as you build these habits, you'll find that English becomes a more integrated part of your life, not just something you study in isolation.
Okay, so we've talked about integrating English into our weekly routines, but I'm curious, what about those bigger, more ambitious goals, like sounding natural or thinking in English? Are there any specific techniques or strategies that can help us achieve those milestones?
Those are great questions. And those goals often go hand in hand, don't they? When you start thinking in English, it naturally flows into your speech, making you sound more effortless and authentic. But it's not something that happens overnight. It takes dedicated practice and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
So, what are some concrete steps we can take to start training our brains to think in English?
Well, the video we've been discussing mentions a simple but powerful exercise. Start by naming everyday objects around you in English. Instead of thinking, table, think table in your mind. Gradually expand this to describing your actions, your thoughts, even your dreams in English.
It's like creating an English-speaking world inside your head.
Exactly. And as you do this more and more, you'll notice that the mental translation process starts to fade away and English becomes a more natural mode of expression.
I can imagine that would take a lot of conscious effort at first, but the payoff would be incredible.
Absolutely. And another technique that can be really helpful is self-talk. Talk to yourself in English, narrate your day, have imaginary conversations, even argue with yourself in English. It might feel silly at first, but it's a great way to practice thinking and speaking spontaneously in the language.
So we're back to talking to ourselves in the mirror again. I'm sensing a theme here.
But this time, it's not just about practicing pronunciation or building confidence. It's about training your brain to think and respond in English automatically without having to go through that mental translation process.
That's fascinating. It's like rewiring your brain for English fluency.
Exactly. And as you work on thinking in English, you'll find that it becomes easier to pick up new phrases, to understand those idioms and expressions, and to express yourself more naturally and authentically.
So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
One skill builds upon another, leading to a more holistic and effortless command of the language.
Precisely. And as you continue to immerse yourself in the language, you'll start to notice those subtle nuances that you might have missed before. You'll pick up on regional accents, cultural references, even humor that's specific to English-speaking cultures.
That's when you really start to feel like you're getting there. Like you're not just learning the language, but truly experiencing it.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond textbook knowledge and embracing the richness and complexity of the language in all its forms.
Wow, I'm feeling so inspired. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from practical tips to mind-blowing insights. But I'm curious, what are some common pitfalls or challenges that learners might encounter along the way, and how can we overcome them?
That's a great question. And I think one of the biggest challenges for many learners is staying motivated and consistent. It's easy to get excited about learning English at first, but that initial enthusiasm can wane when faced with those inevitable challenges and setbacks.
So how do we maintain that momentum, that drive to keep pushing forward even when it feels tough?
Well, I think it starts with setting realistic goals and celebrating your progress, no matter how small. Don't try to do too much too soon. Focus on mastering one skill at a time and break down those larger goals into smaller, more achievable steps.
It's like that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And remember to reward yourself for your efforts. Whether it's watching a movie in English, reading a book you've been wanting to tackle, or even just treating yourself to a nice meal. Those little rewards can help to keep you motivated and engaged.
That's a great tip. And what about those times when you hit a plateau or feel like you're not making any progress? How do you push past those moments of frustration and get back on track?
First, remember that plateaus are normal. Everyone experiences them in their learning journey. It's like hitting a wall in your workout routine. You need to find new ways to challenge yourself and break through. Try mixing up your learning activities, exploring new resources, or even taking a short break to come back with fresh eyes and renewed energy.
Well, that makes sense. It's like cross-training for your language skills. But sometimes, even with the best intentions, life it gets in the way. Work, family, other commitments, they can make it really hard to find time for language learning. How do we balance those competing demands and still make progress?
That's a challenge for everyone, even for language enthusiasts like us. I think the key is to be flexible and creative. Find those pockets of time throughout your day where you can squeeze in some English practice, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. Listen to a podcast while you're commuting, review flashcards while you're waiting in line, or even read a few pages of a book before bed, anything like that.
So it's about being opportunistic, about finding those little moments where you can integrate English into your daily life without disrupting your entire schedule.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to adjust your goals and expectations as needed. Life is constantly changing, and your language learning journey will inevitably ebb and flow with it. The important thing is to keep moving forward, even if it's at a slower pace than you'd like.
Oh, that's such a reassuring message. It's okay to take it slow, to be gentle with ourselves, and to celebrate every step we take on this journey.
Absolutely. And remember, language learning is a lifelong pursuit. There's always something new to learn, always room for growth and improvement, and that's what makes it so exciting and rewarding.
Well, I think this has been an incredibly insightful exploration of English learning goals. We've covered so much ground, from practical tips to deeper reflections on what it means to truly master a language. I'm eager to hear your final thoughts as we wrap up this deep dive. What are some key takeaways that you hope our listener will ponder as they continue their own language learning journey?
That's a great question. I think the most important takeaway is that language learning is a personalized journey. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. The key is to find what works best for you, to experiment with different techniques and to embrace the process of discovery.
And to remember that it's a journey, not a destination. There will be challenges and setbacks along the way, but the rewards of perseverance are immeasurable.
Absolutely. So I encourage our listener to stay curious, stay motivated, and never stop exploring the fascinating world of the English language.
Wonderful advice. Well, that concludes part 2 of our deep dive. I'm already looking forward to our final segment, where we'll wrap up our exploration and leave our listener with some thought-provoking questions to ponder. All right, so welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into English learning goals. It's been, quite a journey, hasn't it? We've unpacked so many phrases, explored different approaches, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super energized to keep pushing forward on my own language learning adventure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable outcomes of this kind of exploration, that feeling of renewed motivation and a clearer sense of direction, right? It's like we've taken a step back to look at the bigger picture, and now we're ready to kind of dive back in with a fresh perspective.
Exactly. And speaking of perspective, I think one of the most powerful insights we've gained from this deep dive is this understanding that there's no single right way to learn English. It's all about finding what works best for you, for your individual learning style, your goals, even your personality.
Absolutely. The video we've been analyzing, it doesn't prescribe a rigid set of rules or a one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, it encourages us to experiment, to explore different techniques, and to personalize our learning journey.
It's like we've been given a map with multiple routes to the summit, and we get to choose the path that feels most comfortable and effective for us.
And that's what makes language learning so exciting, isn't it? It's a process of self-discovery, of pushing those boundaries, and of constantly challenging yourself to grow.
Totally. And I think that sense of challenge is actually a key ingredient in staying motivated. It's about setting goals that stretch you, that make you think, can I really do this? And then proving to yourself that you can.
It's about embracing those moments of discomfort, those times when you feel like you're fumbling for words or struggling to understand a complex concept. Because it's in those moments that you're truly learning and expanding your abilities.
It's like those intense workout sessions that leave you feeling sore, but also incredibly proud of yourself for pushing those limits.
Exactly. And just like with physical fitness, language learning requires consistency and dedication. Remember that phrase we discussed earlier, making English part of your weekly routine. That's where the real magic happens. When you integrate the language into your daily life in a way that feels natural and sustainable.
It's about creating those little touch points throughout your week, like listening to a podcast on your commute, watching a movie in English, even just having a brief conversation with a language partner online.
And as you build those habits, you'll find that English becomes less of a subject you're studying and more of a tool you're using to connect with the world around you.
It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, it feels awkward and challenging, but eventually it becomes second nature, a source of freedom and joy.
And that's what we ultimately want for our listener, isn't it? To experience that sense of freedom and fluency in English, to feel confident and empowered to communicate their ideas, to connect with people from different cultures, and to explore new worlds through the power of language.
Beautifully said. And I think one of the most inspiring takeaways from this deep dive is the realization that language learning is a lifelong journey. There's always something new to discover, always room for growth and improvement.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so rewarding. It's not about reaching some destination, but about embracing the process of learning and expanding your horizons.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
What does getting there mean to you in your English learning journey?
Is it about achieving a specific level of fluency? Is it about feeling comfortable expressing yourself in different situations? Is it about connecting with people from other cultures on a deeper level?
Whatever your definition of getting there may be, remember to celebrate every step you take on this incredible journey.
Embrace the challenges, enjoy the process, and never stop exploring the vast and fascinating world of the English language.
And, who knows, maybe our paths will cross someday and we can share our stories and continue learning together.
I would love that. Until then, happy learning.